Alrighty, folks, as discussed in the daily financial news, Mark Zandi, chief economist at Moody's Analytics, have come out and basically said, be careful, a recession has started and the Fed can't help us. I'm going to go ahead and read just a little bit of an article for Taylor, but before we do that, how you doing, man?
Doing great. I'm interested to hear this because I haven't seen this. So again, you hit me out of left field and we're going to react.
That's right. That's always fun. So here we go. I'll read you a couple of paragraphs. The U.S. economy is on the verge of a recession, according to Mark Zandi, chief economist, Moody's Analytics, who issued a stark warning following a raft of disappointing economic last week. Zandi said that the latest indicators point to a stalling economy, with consumer spending have flatlined, construction and manufacturing sectors slipping into contraction, and the and employment poised to weaken. We added that rising inflation is further complicating any potential policy support from the Federal Reserve. He goes on to talk about why the unemployment rate is low because of participation rate, things of that nature. At the end of the day, I think what Mark is telling us is we are heading into a recession with rising inflation, and thus the Fed's hands are tied. What say you?
I think you're going to start to hear a lot of that R word after those recent job reports that hit on Friday. I think there's no way to avoid it. I think that we've been in this prolonged period of economic stimulus coming from the government that is now no longer just going to fling money into the market. And I think that lack of monetary stimulation, if we do hit weakness, will hit an air gap, and then that could certainly cause an outright recession, which we haven't seen in a number of years now outside of a 45-minute COVID recession.
It really was 45 minutes. It's crazy.
V-bottom, baby.
Yeah, exactly. V-shape bottom. That'll be studied for economic history for sure. But yeah, this is going to get interesting because, one thing that we've talked about for years now is the idea of a rolling recession, right? Where different parts of the economy went in and out. When you collect it together, it's slightly positive. So the traditional call is not there. I think it's interesting, certainly looking at real estate. Real estate's been in a 3.5-year death spiral, right? And we just posted the lowest existing home sales and, adjusted for population ever, right? 3.93 last month and getting worse seemingly. You got manufacturing contracting. It's like, consumers seem to be spent out. I guess the last thing to say is recessions by themselves aren't like, they're not the boogeyman. Like, they're part of our business cycle. It allows you to clean out things. But I guess I would ask you this question. Do you think it's possible we're in a recession right now and we just don't know it?
There's a chance we're on the fringe of a recession right now. It's funny. I mean, the way the risk markets are right now, there's no sign of a recession. I mean, you look at anything from, dumb money, meaning what stocks are doing. Stocks are priced at, they've not been more expensive than they're priced right now, except for 2 times since the 1990s, being the dot-com bubble and then 2021's meme stock madness. But furthermore, where I think you can take a little bit more merit from is credit spreads. So credit spreads, think about, okay, here's what you're able to get right now in, oh boy.
We got to zoom.
I don't know how to zoom back out now. You're going to be ultra close for the rest of this. Okay, so we'll do this anyway from a real tight lens. This is so distracting. It's unbelievable. So credit spreads. Okay, so you take the 10-year treasury or whatever duration bond that you're issuing, and you apply how much risk on top is how much then you will pay for a corporate bond, and whether that be a high quality corporate bond or a low quality corporate bond. So right now, credit spreads are still razor tight.
Yeah, aren't they as tight as they've been in like 20 years or something?
Yeah, they're razor thin. So that's saying that these companies that are having debt issued to them are not going to have any solvency issues. They're going to be able to pay their debt liabilities. And so there's a little bit more frame of security in that thought than there is in the retail driven equity market, if you will. So it'll be interesting. There's no signs of recession in asset prices right now. Asset prices typically lead into a recession. The market sees both the credit spreads and the equity market sees a recession coming prior to it actually forming. And they're saying all good on the Western Front.
Yeah, it is pretty interesting because, again, one of the things that I took from Mark's article was basically he thinks the Fed's hands are going to be tied and they won't be able to, accommodate the market. I think there's a couple of things here. One is, this thing called R star, neutral rate, whatever you want to call that, restrictive, non-restrictive. And the last thing I read from Fed presidents, generally speaking, again, it's never known for certain, but the general feeling is they think that's around 3%. Right. So if we assume it's 3% just for, this discussion, that means we're 1.25 points restrictive, right? I would argue, significantly restrictive. So, if you're in a recession or on the cusp, I would think getting to neutral is an easy call. Don't you think?
Agreed. Yeah. And I think Powell puts it a little differently, where you say it's very restrictive right now. And I'm not faulting you for using that word. He says that it's a little bit restrictive, mildly, right? Mildly restrictive. And I think that I'm somewhere between the two of you.
Okay.
I think that R star rate, which is a completely fictitious academic way of thinking about things, is probably more in the mid threes than it is at 3.
Okay.
And so I think that you're, 75 basis points right now, 0.75% off of where that neutral rate is. And right now, I mean, Powell has made it very clear that the Fed thinks that we are going to see continued inflationary pressures. And he said they will be sure. I was surprised at how much he said this, and he belabored it like 3 or 4 times. We will be sure to just make this a one-time price shock as opposed to a perpetual inflationary build.
Yeah. The one thing I want to do here is give credit where credit is due. I saw some videos from Danielle DiMartino Booth basically talking about this idea of tariff inflation coming through. And it's really goods inflation, let's be clear, right? Goods that are imported. And she's basically on record saying that, yeah, that's going to happen. You're going to see some of that. But when the Fed gets the collective picture of inflation, it's going to be much, much better because we're in a disinflationary cycle, especially around shelter. I mean, one of the things that you and I've talked about for 2 years is the shelter data is just, it's bad data, right? We've had declining rents across the country for, 6 or 9 months, but still it's up 8% or whatever it is in the data.
Right.
That's starting to roll through. So to her credit, I think she's right. That's why I'm giving her credit. I think when you just put the whole inflation picture together, you're just not going to see it at the top line because you're going to have disinflation in the biggest sector, housing. But also, we're a service-based economy. There's one report I read, when you look at goods, it's only like 12 to 15% of our economy, right? Goods that are imported. Right. So even if that goes up, 3%, but you have disinflation in 85% of the others, right? You could go negative. It could happen.
Yeah. And I think that one of the concerning things right now is that you're getting disinflationary pressure in the services sector, which is the much larger percentage of the economy, to your point.
Exactly.
And what that says is just a lack of demand for services. And services have been the bellwether of the economy looking back. I mean, we've been in a goods recession now for, 2 years, whatever it is now. Yeah. So we had that, goods, just think about a TV and think about that as goods, right? So we had this meaningful pump coming out of COVID because people had stimulus checks and you couldn't spend them by going out and about. So goods got inflated based on that. And then since then, there's no more need for a good. Yeah. People are out doing experiential stuff after COVID. And so therefore the services side of the equation started to tick higher and meaningfully higher. And the lack of labor supply in the market drove that number directionally way higher than we thought it would have gone. And that was what was propelling inflation so much higher so rapidly. And that's what's caused it to be as sticky as it's actually been. Now you have that portion of it rolling over, which shouldn't shock us to see, okay, if 85% of our economy is services, or 70%, 70, 85, whatever the number is, and you now have weak jobs data, what would you anticipate?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Because when you look at our economy, which again, if you look at just the macro, I do think it's like 70, 30, 68, 32, services versus goods. If we start losing the service sector, game over. Yeah. It's just game over for the at least, for this cycle.
Well, I think that's what's playing out right now. And I think what took it so long to play out, even though interest rates were high and it's high cost of labor these days, is the fact that we just went through the period where people were able to go out and get essentially you couldn't find workers post-COVID, right? And you had to pay them an arm and a leg to come over. People were getting paid 30% more to do the exact same job at a different company. That was just labor competition. And then it went from labor competition to labor hoarding, where we don't want to go back through that cycle again of having paid too much to bring these people on board. And now maybe you're seeing some weakness on the other side of that to say, we don't need these folks. And how much of a gain do we get out of AI? What's funny is when you look at the long-term economic data, the only time we get productivity gains, the only time, regardless of technological innovation, is during a recession.
Correct.
So what'll be interesting is if we go into a recession with AI being the lead story on the front end of the recession, of it being so game changing, how much credit is AI going to get for productivity gains that we get in the fashion that we would have gotten them anyway, because the next two people over got fired for me and I just pick up their work, which is what happens during recessions.
Yeah. Since we're talking about AI, I'm curious, you've obviously think about this a lot, but I'm curious, do you think AI is going to be this evil thing that just makes all of us stay home and does all the work for us? Or do you think it's a net positive going forward? How do you look at AI? Is it just going to crush employment? We're going to 10%, or have you thought about that?
I think on the surface level, it's easy to say that. Anytime there's a new technology that gets brought up, all of a sudden what happens is it's going to steal the job. Every paralegal, I remember that being the focal one, like the paralegal's gone, right?
Right.
So I think the reality is what it's going to do is augment. So are there going to be people that are fired or laid off based on the fact that they can be replaced with AI? It certainly is going to happen. But I think what people will do, and just the innovative nature of humanity, is we'll find ways to have this improve lives with the use of someone standing next to it and dictating things to it. And what it'll do is just see an overall build of our economy based on partially just the outright AI, but also the human that's training it, that's having it create the output that's needed, et cetera. I use AI a lot now. And I would say a year ago, I used it very marginally. But what I use it for is if I input the right data. So I do a lot of videos. If I input the right data and prompt it correctly, I've put so many of my videos through AI, they can generate a talk track for me that is nearly identical to me writing it myself.
Nice.
But it comes with training, right? And I didn't know I was training. I was putting things in and say, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? But all along it was training. Now I can dump a data set in, tell them the output I'm looking to create and the narrative and the logic behind it, and it can write it for me. It's unbelievable.
There you go. There you go. Do you have your favorite AI tool?
I use ChatGPT.
Okay.
Almost exclusively, yeah.
Very, very cool. Well, this is going to be a lot of fun. I think there's a lot of complexities going on in the economy. I think this talk of inflation, tariff-induced inflation it's just not going to show up at the macro, right? The big picture, because we have so much disinflation. And I think most people are going to miss it, including Powell. I think Powell is so focused on the goods portion, he's missing the bigger picture.
And let's be clear, that's not healthy.
No,
you're not putting that out as a good thing. That
no,
tariffs aren't going to, the tariffs are an inflationary issue, is what you're saying, but it's not going to be felt because we're getting so much weakness other places.
Yeah, there is no question that some items are going to go up. I'm not silly, but when you look at the collective picture, it's just not going to show up at the macro level. Taylor, where can people find you?
Yeah, find us at Life Goal Investments. We're on both Instagram and on TikTok.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you.
Thank you.